Oh, good morning. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Liz. How are you?
I am well in sunny Tassie this morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great on the Gold Coast here. I'm sitting here going, it's a little bit chilly this morning, but our chilly is 11, 12 degrees, and it's, time to put the woolies on. Oh, so where are two tarts on a journey going to go today?
Well, I feel there seems to be many people questioning, and I say that I held an event on Saturday and I had some new people there, and they were saying they were drawn to this, very different for them because it was a check-in circle, Kundalini breath work, and some yin but a sound bath. So very different to what a lot of people have. But the theme seemed to be that they were going through, knew something was happening,
Yeah.
but don't quite know what is happening. But no change is coming. And I felt that it might be good to maybe just go back and just maybe talk about what it was like, or maybe give some insights to anyone that's listening that's feeling like that on how to navigate that feeling and what it is, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great idea because I think, even just to begin, it might be a really good idea to talk about how we identify this this energy change, because it is, this is what's happening. There is an energy change happening. Some people call it the ascension, some people call it going into the fifth dimension, but people are, and as you say, people are coming to me just saying, there's something, we can feel something. So, I like to talk to them about, well, how do you feel that? How do you feel that? Do you feel that in your heart, as a sensation? Do you feel it in your gut? Do you feel it on your skin? How do you actually feel that? So a lot of people are then stopping and going, oh, okay, I actually identify. So one of the women that I was talking to, she identified it when we got really clear. She identified it as almost feeling like a halo around her head. And that halo had a lighter energy around it. It felt like clarity, but she didn't know clarity about what. She just said it feels as if my eyes are open, and there's there's information that is out there, and she'd never done anything like we. I'm like, you and I are very similar, so we pick up. That's how we operate. We operate with our intuition and our sense of what the energies around us are doing and what they're feeling like. But so many of these people, they are they are so busy in their lives. They're not at that point where they've got the space, or they've create the space in order to acknowledge things in their energy field.
Perhaps if we can just simplify that a little bit,
Yeah,
as in, the fancy words that are being tossed around, ascension and fifth dimension.
yeah,
Many people don't understand that. And I think it's very confusing because people have different interpretations of it. You
yes.
know, um, they feel it's like, it's not a place or a destination, it's a feeling. So maybe if we can bring it back, that whatever's awakening isn't
Yes.
outside of us, isn't an ascension, isn't it? It's perhaps is a higher consciousness, but ultimately we're being drawn back into ourselves to reconnect with ourselves. And you hit the nail on the head, because we're too busy to do that. And we came in with this veil to remember who we are. And now it is trying to step back and look at why things are so busy, why we can't connect to ourselves because of this busyness, and maybe just sit with that feeling, as you said, and go, okay, what is it? Change. It's just this desire to remember who we are, to reconnect with who we are, that authenticity. So if we can bring it back to self, which is where the self-worth, the self-love and all of that, which is now carrying out into the relationships and the work environment, because we're questioning, is this an act of self, any self, whatever that is, word is.
Am I doing this? Yeah. Why am I actually doing this activity?
Yeah, is it feeding my soul, or am I doing it from fear of not having enough money? Am I doing it because somebody told me this is what I need to do? Am I doing it because I'm whatever? But is it feeding the soul, which is wanting to awaken, and that light that you're talking about, or whatever? It's this in here wanting to now question, is this me, or is this something that, part of that enslavement we've been talking about, but is it something that's pushing me out there to do something I don't want to? So the questions seem to be, people are now questioning, is this me? Is this what I really want? But not understanding what that is. But I just thought if we could bring it back to self as opposed to the fancy words out of us, people might understand that a little bit more. It's more that desire to know self.
Yes. Yeah, and I think too, we're getting, because this is becoming more and more prevalent out in social media, there's more and more talk about what we're talking about. So a lot of people used to label this kind of woo woo or whatever. It's actually not. It's our life experience. So as you say, if we can, do we all need to come back? If we do start experiencing and being aware of this change of sensation around us and within us, do we all need to bring this back to those questions? The ones that we did when we first started. Who am I? What am I here for? Pushing out all of that busyness just in little pieces. So taking a couple of moments, perhaps after we've had a meal or something, just taking an extra few minutes and taking a deep breath into the belly and really asking ourselves, how am I feeling? How am I really feeling? What am I feeling inside, as you say? So, I always feel that's a good way to start, is to start exploring how we are, because it all comes down to us and how we're feeling, self.
Yeah, so the word confinement kept coming to me when you were talking then. For so long we've been confined in an ideal of how we are to live. And I think this discomfort that we're feeling now is that confinement wanting to shift. We don't want to be confined any longer, whether we know that that's what's happening, but it seems to be we need to come from that confinement now. And as you said, and we've talked about it, start asking questions, why am I doing this? How did I get here? Why am I doing something that perhaps I don't like, or why isn't it, serving me? So coming out of that confinement, it's nearly like, as you said, this halo, but it's nearly like just this breaking out of, I say the matrix, that always, those movies always read, but the web that we've been confined in, who are we really? Are we just this avatar that's going from wakes up, has breakfast, move in, or are we being asked, are we more? Can I do more? Can I bring more? But it starts with self.
Yeah.
Having that realization to be able to get to that. So this discomfort feeling with it, and just going, okay, is this serving me? Do I have the courage? Can I listen to that and trust myself enough perhaps to step out of the comfort zone and feel what this is?
Yeah. And again, people use the words comfort zone. So, even that, let's talk about what a comfort zone is, because I notice this, I notice people talking about a comfort zone, but what is that? Because a lot of people don't understand. They use it, but it's like, well, what's a comfort zone? If we really have a good look at that, and it's okay, that's the confines, your
Yes,
comfort zone, isn't it? So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Because we didn't come here just to, get married, have the white picket fence, have the 3 kids, go into a job, or go into abusive relationship, or all the other parts of that, the polarity of that. You
mm,
know, it doesn't have to be good for a comfort zone. Somebody could be in an abusive relationship, but it's all they've known. So for them, it's a comfort zone where they're destructive. So a
yeah,
comfort zone is something where we've put ourselves where we think we're safe in our conscious belief of
yeah,
programming, which
yeah,
we aren't. So, you're right. The comfort zone is something we've been, again, confined in
yeah,
and not allowing ourselves to go, oh, well, even if you were positive, I've reached this. Where
mm,
can I go next? But
yeah,
people go, oh my God, I finally got to where I want. But it's not really. It's confining us. It's keeping you
yeah,
small.
yes, yeah. And that's so interesting, um, that sense of confinement or being imprisoned, with within the within the parameters that our beliefs have confined us in. Um,
Yeah. Our words, thoughts, and actions of
yeah,
ourself,
and
belief
it
systems,
does,
and those of what we've been told or
yeah.
programmed,
And
you
it's
know?
amazing when you really stop and start questioning what we believe about the life that we are leading, my life. When you start questioning, well, I've always wanted to do that, and feeling in your body, feeling there's a resistance to going and doing that, which we've always, I'd love to do that. I'd really love to do that. Oh, but I can't do that. So and really getting a sense of that resistance. And it's amazing. Then we start realizing that these confines, this comfort zone, limits us in our choices, in the decisions we make, and in that life we lead. So
Our
after a
beliefs
while,
about ourselves, of what we're capable of.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then it's so interesting, because where did those beliefs come from? Are they our beliefs? Did we have the freedom to to did we have the freedom to create those beliefs ourselves? And that's when, we start kind of looking back and investigating, well, why do I think that? When I look outside and I see people doing what I've always wanted to do, and they seem to have such freedom and ease to do it, what's confining me? So what would I have to believe about myself and the world in order to be where I am?
I think ultimately, again, keeping it simple and
Mm,
feeling, we're feeling uncomfortable at the moment. We're feeling change is inevitable. We're asking questions. We're looking at ourselves to see if this is really what we want to do. And I think, so much of that is trust of self and allowing ourselves to feel it without resisting. And I think we've been programmed for so long that we can't feel if we feel or we want to do something different, you know, we're being selfish or whatever. And I think, there again brings in, we do so many, you know, words, thoughts, and actions from self. And whether those actions, those thoughts are, I'm not worthy of that, or I can't do that, I'm going to upset somebody, or I'm going to, um, I can't think of the word I was going to go then. But when we start feeling that, we then go into old patterns of behavior because we then limit ourselves again, thinking we can't do something because it would upset or somebody won't allow that. So we go into these addictive behaviors, whether it be alcohol or whatever, or self-abuse, words or whatever. And I think ultimately it's just going back to see if we can break those patterns of confinement
Yeah.
and just allow ourselves to feel for the first time. And this is where it's becoming very uncomfortable and very difficult, because as we feel, it's bringing things up that perhaps what we've seen or known is not really what we've wanted to do. So it becomes extremely uncomfortable. And then we limit ourselves from that discomfort because we're not used to it, and we do behaviors that maybe aren't serving us to move through it. So ultimately, it's just coming back and allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to feel and see something different without thinking we're selfish, but just bringing it back to self and go, really, what is it I'm feeling? What is it that I want to do today? Or do I need to change something that's going to make me feel a little bit different? So trusting that and allowing it.
Yeah, and I think, it's possibly now a good time to bring in like activities that we can do to intensify that that this, because it's it begins a journey, so that exploration. So when we take those few extra minutes, create a few extra minutes a day, and grab yourself a journal. Grab yourself a journal and a pen, and when those thoughts come up, just jot them down. So writing down what's flowing, and not necessarily your thoughts, but what's flowing through your head. Because then we try and take those, whatever words are flowing and feelings are flowing through our head, and we try to put them into a word form or a sentence form that can actually make sense for us. But when we look underneath that, we can actually see the little snippets of thoughts really, that are really aching to be heard. And I think that's often what we forget. We forget that we live in this amazing body, and this amazing body is really, really intelligent, and it's connected to our brain. So, our body does communicate with us. So often when we are experiencing those little snippets of thoughts that are coming in, those are the whispers of our soul, basically, starting to give us the direction that we can go in order to find freedom, ways out of that confinement.
Yeah, and also, I keep going back, I know I've suggested journaling to a few people now, and they go, I can't do that. So I think, okay, well, maybe you're not ready there. But, again, going back to simplicity, and when you feel like this, allow yourself, if you can, I'm in a cold climate, but just stepping outside and connecting to the sun, connecting to Mother Earth. And again, when you were talking, I was thinking of how we have been confined, and we've been placed in offices. How many of us go to offices, or for myself, being an emergency nurse, in these big rooms, no windows, you can't see out, fluorescent lights. So it's not really allowing us, when we have these moments, to explore that, because it's all this, I would call it sort of a bit heavier energy, or not the ability to see past what we've been put into. So even just taking that moment when you feel like, maybe just step outside for a moment, or step to a window at least and look at the sun. Just allow your mind just to get out of where it is, and just to open up a little bit more with the expansiveness of what's out there. And I say, simply stepping out your door and seeing the expansiveness of what's around us that we
Yeah.
haven't been connecting with because we're busy, is going to start to help to bring us back to connect on a deeper level. And it's just a simple way of also silencing the mind for a moment. Just take a breath and look up.
Mm.
And that enough may just be enough to
Yeah.
have a little bit more of a breakthrough, a little bit. You might not know it, but each time you do it, you're probably just allowing that little bit more. The body's going, oh, she's listening, he's listening. It's
Yeah.
going to become that little bit more easy. I don't know whether I went off track then, but
No, that's
it's
exactly
just
right, because we're looking for, we're looking to suggest just little things that people can do. So yeah, and as we've said, I think through every podcast we've done, if we can get outside, put our bare feet on the earth for as soon as we put our bare feet on the earth, there's a transfer of energy and a transfer of electricity. So that's all we can actually feel then the difference.
or touch a tree if it's too
Oh,
cold. I
yeah.
mean, I've got to admit, I'm it's getting a little bit hard for me to get my feet on the grass because it's so cold. But again, it doesn't matter. Touching a tree is still that transfer of energy. It's still that
Yes,
connection. You don't have
yes,
to understand what it is or be aware of it. But how many times can you do that or step on? Or for me, the other day, I went to the beach and it was cold, but I knew I had to get my bare feet on the sand and in the water, and it was cold. But I just myself at that time, I felt this great sigh and this like lightness come over me by just doing that simple action.
yeah, yeah, yes, 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 yes. So true. Yeah, and it's following those little intuitive hunches, just those, and they come so quickly. It's like, oh, and it's a little desire that the body and mind want you to just take them into a different space, into a different place.
Environment, yeah. I mean, that just goes back to sometimes where, you could be just sitting there and you get this urge to go down to the coffee shop and just sit and have a coffee. And
Yeah.
like sometimes you go, oh, I can't do that. I haven't got time. I haven't got the money. But you know what? When you do that,
Mm.
you're not only giving yourself self-care and self-love, but you may well be there to meet somebody or cross paths with somebody.
Yes,
And so many times that happens. And then that also is an exchange of energy, which puts you into a higher vibration. Those simple things that we dismiss
yes.
are the things that are going to bring us back to connection, not only with ourselves, but with another.
So yeah, and that's really another really great suggestion. When we do get those little pieces of desire that come and go and do that or go and do that, then no matter what we're doing, just take that time. And that is really stepping out of our comfort zone. Oh, I can't step away from this. But what if you did? What's the worst thing that could happen? But yeah,
It's that coming back to presence, isn't it? It's that being present with self
yeah,
and perhaps feeling things that are uncomfortable that we continue to resist.
yes, yes,
That's the worst thing that can happen. But there's magic in that.
yeah,
There's gold. If we could just do that, it's gone in a blink and then you've bought yourself an enjoyable moment.
yeah,
And we're not saying go for 3, 4, 5 hours. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
yes,
That magic underneath that, just to not resist it anymore because you want it. Oh, I can't, I can't. Well, you can. Just be present
yeah,
because a door will open, something
yes,
shifts in that
yeah.
moment.
And it truly does. It truly
Yeah.
does, doesn't it? Once you start following, I remember like when I was a really, really, really young, um, it was a big thing those because we were all surfers and thought we were really cool. But it was all about following your bliss. I had no idea what that really meant, but I'd do it. I'd go, yeah, all right then. But had no idea how to put the two and two together, what it meant in the long term for me, just following that. And a lot of the time I didn't do it. I didn't do because I was quite a good girl. So, I was a good girl. So I followed the rules. I was a real rule follower,
Mm.
even though I didn't think I was. I thought I was a rebel, but I wasn't. I wasn't. I just shuffled along in that thing. But by the by, but yeah, and I think that's a really good piece of advice that you have suggested. Just, we've got one, you can just go to a window and look up at the sky. Just changing it, that changes your state immediately. Go and outside, hug a tree, put your feet on the grass, sit
Come
down.
and treat yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
But another
Boy,
thought came up, which could be another podcast with what you were just saying then, is the deep wound around questioning. You were saying you were a rule follower.
yeah,
I questioned everything, even from a young age, and I was shut down. You can't do that. You can't say that. It is just for that. So now that we're in this ages and we're starting to question, we've got these belief systems, our self-talk going, oh, I can't do that. You just follow it. You trust in that. And I was just thinking it's another whole wound now that we're stepping out and questioning because we've always been told it just is,
yeah,
just do it this way. So
yeah.
I was just thinking that's a wound in itself to start questioning. And I think that also maybe where a little bit of resistance is, again, those belief systems, you know, you do it because it just is, or you're told, or that's the way we've always done it. But when you start stepping back and going, oh, why have I always done that? Then
Yeah,
that discomfort is coming as well. So
yeah.
a whole new trauma around questioning.
Yes. Yeah, and I think just being bold enough to and being that little bit of a rebel enough to follow that little voice that says, God, go do that.
Yeah.
And while the subconscious voice, that little inner critic, or whatever we call it, comes in and goes, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. The job of the subconscious, as we know, is to keep us safe and keep us alive, walking the straight and narrow, because that's the place of safety. But when we start questioning that, when we start saying, well, hang on, and I love, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I don't
That's that
know,
saying,
because I've
isn't it?
never pushed that boundary. I've never done that. I've never stood up in the middle of a task that I was doing, or a job that I was, and just gone and followed my little inner voice that said, go and talk to that person, or go and sit over there. Go and get yourself a coffee. And it's so much fun.
Oh, so many gems, absolutely. And I think, it just goes back, you do no harm
Mm.
to anybody or self, and you just follow that, that's that whole thing.
Yeah. And I think when we begin to do this, and we begin that self-questioning, well, what's stopping me from doing that? Why can't I do that? What's going to happen? And that little voice goes, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, hang on a minute. Who do I get in trouble with? I'm my boss.
But that's the thing, isn't it? We've given our power away for so long, and
Yes.
bringing
Yeah.
our power back within to
Yeah.
see the self-worth and the empowerment and
Yeah.
all of that, who we truly are, is
Yeah.
becoming uncomfortable because for many of us, we've never known that state of
That's
being.
right.
So when we
Yeah.
start to do it, of course, it's uncomfortable. But as you said, it comes back from trust and just starting to do those simple little things that
Yeah.
are slowly connecting us back
Mm.
to self.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to get mixed in with all of this stuff in our head. It can be just like, okay, I'm going to do that. But as I said, once we start asking those questions, what's the worst thing that can happen? Most of the time, most of us will say, when we're at that point, I don't know. I don't know, because I've never pushed that boundary. So it does take guts to go, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And it doesn't
And
mean jumping out of a plane or something.
no, I was going to say, because when you do start questioning, it's usually coming from heart because it's your soul, it's your higher self wanting to question that bit more. And I was going to say, you never put in danger from that point.
No,
You're only
no.
put in danger when you're allowing ego and your head to um, take you, you know, you want to go and do something and it's like, oh, I've got to go and do that because, I'm going to be seen as whatever. But if you're coming from the heart space, you're never going to be put in harm's way because you're coming from your higher self.
Yes, yeah,
So you can trust. It's a big thing, but you can trust. And step by step, as we were saying, just those little things.
yes, yeah. Excellent. That's another thing. I mean, that'll take many podcasts, I'm sure, talking about the ego or the subconscious mind that's keeping us confined. Once we start exploring that, then that's where freedom comes.
Yeah, I was listening to Till Swanner. I'm reading a book actually, and she says the ego, we have these thoughts and belief systems. If
Mm.
we hold on them for long enough and they become a part of, that then goes into the subconscious and becomes that way of.
Yeah,
So the belief system goes in there in the subconscious. So they're those
yeah,
deep-seated things that we've believed it for so long, it just is. And that's just
yeah,
that breaking through of that to
yeah.
change this. And it can only be done in moments of silence or connection to a
Yes.
tree or something where you can see something different without knowing, but just silencing for a moment.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's where that sense of fear or resistance comes from, because it's so frightening. Frightening for us to go just to go against that ego mind or
And
the
everything we've known or been.
well, and that's what drives us. And it's so linked to what we think is survival and what the subconscious knows is for us is survival. So it's such an amazing, amazing journey. Anyway, it's time for us to wind up again. That's a really good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. It always goes so quick. I mean,
So,
it's such a big thing, but ultimately, if we can just go step by step and just really work on just listening and trusting and just questioning, we'll start to take one step forward out of that comfort zone, out of that confinement to see things differently. It's a slow
yeah,
um, change, but you begin, and once you start to begin, you do get a greater sense of awareness where you can't really step back. You can only keep moving forward.
yeah. And it starts to weave its way into our life. And then it becomes, to me, awareness is my life. Presence and awareness, and it just is my experience. Anyway,
And does continue to push us, but that's part of growth.
it does. Lovely. Okay, so lovely to talk to you, Liz. We'll
And
talk.
you, Margaret. Yep.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.